Subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified about the highlights of India's smartest podcast, The Ranveer Show. This is TRS Clips. And we have Som in our culture as well.
Yes.
Right? What is
yes.
Som though?
Som is a very, very misunderstood and misrepresented chemical, actually. I would say, as a doctor and somebody who's working in pharma, I would say Som was not a psychedelic. Som was an invigorant. Okay.
Like Viagra?
No, not really. So the adrenaline rush that comes, right? So Som was probably something which gave you the adrenaline rush.
Like
which
coffee?
was better than that.
Okay.
So actual adrenaline, the chemical adrenaline.
Okay.
So Som was something that triggered the release of adrenaline in your body. That's what my theory is. And in fact, a lot of people had in earlier days, they had done research on what the Soma plant could have been. And there was a very close contender, which was, some people had the view that probably it was a mushroom that had psychedelic properties. But the descriptions of Som and the way, the entire 9th mandal of the Rigveda is dedicated to Soma. The one whole mandal of Rigveda, because Soma formed a very important part of the ancient culture and we don't understand it, unfortunately.
Maybe this was a part of the cognitive revolution.
Precisely. But Soma, it actually gave you the adrenaline rush. And if you read the 9th mandal, you would find the hymns that talk about Soma being pressed out of stalks. So it was a creeper, most probably, or a shrub, whose stalks were used, not the fruits or the flowers.
Like
or
mushroom
the
ki
leaves.
dandi.
Yeah, mushroom ki dandi, probably. But these are like jointed stems.
Okay.
That's how the description is.
Okay.
So they're jointed stems. So there are nodes in it. So probably it was a longer than a mushroom, a plant. And these stalks were used. The stems were used. They were crushed. And the juice that was, extracted, it was filtered in sheep's cloth. Okay. And then and this juice that came out was slightly bitter. These are all the descriptions in the Rigveda, okay? And therefore, it was mixed with either milk or curd to be made fit for the consumption of the gods. And when was it offered to the gods? The scriptures talk about Indra drinking pots of Som, ponds of Som, lakes of Som, so much Som he drank. And when did he do it? Not when he wanted to relax, when he wanted to go to war. So it does not make sense to have a psychedelic or an intoxicant when you're going to war. Maybe, one small bit of an alcohol, can probably release your inhibitions, but not pots of it, right? What will you fight? You will lose your judgment. So this was an invigorating substance that probably gave an adrenaline rush to the person who was drinking it. And that is why, the pupils are dilated. When you have an adrenaline rush, your pupils are dilated. Your breathing is faster. Your muscles get more oxygen. Your blood vessels are dilated. So you get the energy to either fight or run away. The fight or flight reaction, it's called in medicine. So the body prepares you to do either of these. Now it's your call. Either you can run away, for which you need energy, or you can fight, for which you again need energy. So body's preparing you for it. And Soma was a plant that allowed you to get that adrenaline rush just by ingesting it. So a lot of athletes or sportsmen take steroids or, they take chemicals. And ephedrine is one of those chemicals which is banned. This again is supposed to give you an adrenaline rush. So Soma was probably something similar.
Some natural parallel of ephedrine.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think what people don't understand about botanical sciences, and this I learned from Dr. Mark Plotkin, one of the world's most well-renowned botanists, so much of ancient botany is now lost. True. What I also found out from a Himalayan explorer on the show, that's why I love doing this podcast. Because cool knowledge like this just stays with me. What I found out from that Himalayan explorer was that there are a lot of shrubs and plants hidden deep inside the Himalayas.
Yes.
Probably under the snow that are still not rediscovered.
Right.
But you talk to the locals and they have some knowledge
know,
about those
of
plants.
course,
Not
of
complete
course.
knowledge, but they have some knowledge.
Of course.
They know that this plant does this plant does that. And those plants have probably not even been discovered by science.
Yes.
Yet.
Yes.
And there is research ongoing about those plants.
Right.
Now, maybe Som could be derived from one of those unknown plants.
Definitely. I think we've just lost the identification. It definitely still exists. And there's very interesting descriptions where it's found. It's found in the mountain regions. That is why it's difficult to access. So it's found in the Himalayan mountains. And it probably extended right from, Tibet to Afghanistan, the range
Like the story in Ramayana of
of the Sanjeevani. But
Sanjeevani.
Sanjeevani was a different herb.
What do you think that was as a doctor?
Not really sure. But again, there's not just one herb that's described in the Ramayana. Hanuman is actually sent to bring 4 different herbs.
Okay.
And he goes twice
Okay.
to the mountains to get the herbs. And so one of these is Sanjeevani. But there are 3 other herbs that are described in the Valmiki Ramayana. We just get the, so the Ramayana that we know is more of the Ramcharitmanas version. Valmiki Ramayana has many, many differences, which is the actual original depiction of the Ramayana. So there are 4 different herbs that Hanuman goes to get. But Soma was till recently, and it's very interestingly, the Persians, the Parsis we have in Mumbai, they have a Hauma ceremony, which is similar to the Soma ceremony that used to be done by the Vedic people. And the Indian and the Iranian, the Vedic and the Iranian civilizations developed almost at the same time. But they were probably antagonists.
Oh, really?
Yes.
They were enemies.
They were enemies, more or less, yes.
Wow.
Because for us, the Asurs are the demons, right? For the Parsis, for the Zoroastrians, Devas were the demons.
Oh.
Yeah. So they were probably enemy tribes. But they grew in the same environment. They were from the same stock of people, same languages, the Indo-European languages, Indo-European culture. That's why the stories are similar. The language is very similar. And the Parsis even today have a Hauma ceremony. Okay. And again, it involves extracting juice from a stalk, from a plant, which is again filtered. There's very specific apparatus to do that. And it's a proper ceremony. It's the same Soma ceremony in the Vedas. Okay. And again, this stock that they use for this, till recent times, it used to be imported from Afghanistan. So there was a very specific geography where Soma was available. And that is why we've lost the connect. And since partition, of course, we would not have had access. And I don't think a lot of people were even interested in finding out, which is very unfortunate that a lot of people in India, we turned so westernized immediately right after independence that, being educated in English became the parameter for your knowledge. And all the knowledge that the regional languages had, the literature that regional languages had, all the knowledge in Sanskrit, it was forgotten. Today, how many people know Sanskrit? But if you can read Sanskrit, if you can understand Sanskrit and you can read the scriptures, there's so much more research that can happen, right? So I think that's where Soma comes from. It's definitely, a lot of people again interpret it in a different way, that it was a metaphysical concept. It was more about, the joy of discovering yourself when you're in meditation. It may be so, because Soma has a dual entity. It's also called, Soma is also the name of the moon god. Chandrama is also called Soma. But there's definitely a plant, because the entire 9th mandal is dedicated to its extraction, its filtration, and it's so poetic. The Rig Veda is very poetic. Beautiful verses that talk about the sieve that is used to filter the extract. It's supposed to have 10 holes, probably. That's why it's called the 10 maidens. And you see the Parsis use a similar apparatus, a similar sieve used today. So even though Soma extraction and the ceremony did not survive in our country, it did survive in the neighboring civilization.